Hello everyone. In this lecture, we're going to talk about Lophtrochozoans. The mollusks are animals with a complex soft body and most secrete a hard external shell. They are a major group, enormously varied, and includes familiar groups like the snails, slugs, clams, scallops, oysters, cuttlefish, octopuses, but many are known only as fossils. Early in their history, the basic body plan was modified by adaptations to disparate lifestyles. Each of these imposed particular and distinctive characters which are the basis for subdivision into classes. Three classes are important as fossils: the bivalvia, gastropoda, and cephalopoda. Most mollusks are mobile creatures living in the sea, but some are found in fresh water and some gastropods occur on land. While externally the molluscan shell is very varied in form, internally the body largely conforms to a basic plan of organization. Mollusks are bilaterally symmetrical, but this symmetry is modified during development of many gastropods which undergo torsion. There are four main regions: the head, the visceral mass, the mantle, and the food. The visceral mass, containing the internal organs, is dorsal in position. On the ventral side is usually a muscular organ used for moving and hence known as the food. The mantle, a thick epithelial sheet, covers the dorsal side of the body and bonds the mantle cavity. The mantle secretes the calcium carbonate of the shell in those mollusks with a shell. The head with the mouth is at the anterior end. It leads into the digestive tract, which in turn leads to the anus at the posterior end. The nervous and circulatory systems are highly organized throughout the phylum. The shell, secreted by the mantle, is partly calcareous and partly organic in composition. The fossil record of the mollusca dates from the early Cambrian. The bivalves are distinguished from other mollusks by their laterally compressed body enclosed between two calcareous valves which are united on the dorsal side by an elastic, horny ligament. In most cases, the animal is bilaterally symmetrical, and the plane of symmetry is the plane along which the two valves meet. Thus, the valves are almost perfect mirror images of each other. The group is entirely aquatic, the vast majority living in quite shallow water. Most lead a relatively sedentary life, not moving far or quickly, and following one of a limited number of modes of life. Bivalves, as their name implies, have two shells that are hinged dorsally, so the shells are oriented laterally. A ligament lying along the hinge is structured so it causes the shells to gape open. One or two large adductor muscles link the shells internally, and when they contract, they counteract the hinge ligament to draw the shells together. The mantle covers the internal surface of the shells, enveloping the visceral mass on its inner side and secreting the shell on its outer side. As is typical of mollusks, the respiratory structures, a set of complexly folded gills on each side of the visceral mass, lie in the mantle cavity. Unlike other mollusks, a bivalve does not have a regular or distinct head. The food, lying between the mantle lobes on the ventral side, of most is wedge-shaped, adapted for burrowing or anchoring the animal in its burrow. Some species of clams can dig into sand or mud very rapidly by means of muscular contractions of their foot. The edges of the mantle may be partly fused. In bivalves, in which this is the case, Typically, two areas are not fused and may be drawn out to form tubes called siphons. Water enters the mantle chamber through the inhalant siphon, bringing oxygen and food, and water exits through the exhalant siphon, taking waste with it. The substance of the shell is partly calcareous, partly organic. A thin section shows it to consist of 3 layers. On the outside is a thin, horny layer, the periostracum. The inner layers consist of crystals, usually of agaronite, sometimes of calcite or of both. Muscle attachments are underlain by aragonite. The structure of these inner layers varies in different bivalves and is used in classification. A common structure found in the middle layer consists of prisms lying transverse to the periostracum. The innermost layer of many shells is made of nacre. Nacre is made of alternate very thin lamellae of aragonite and conchiolin lying parallel to the outer layers. The shape of the bivalve shell may vary considerably according to its mode of life, but its basic design is simple. The initial part of each valve is the beak. With growth of the shell, the beak forms part of the prominent convex area, the umbo, projecting above the dorsal margin. Typically, it lies in front of the ligament. As the animal grows, further layers of shell are laid down by the mantle. The marginal increments are seen on the outer surface as growth lines which merge towards the hinge line. On the inner surface of the valves is the hinge plate, which is a thickening of the dorsal margin just below the umbo. On each plate are projections, teeth, which fit into sockets in the opposite hinge plate. The ligament, which connects the two valves dorsally, consists of resilient conchiolin. The hinge plate, with its dentition and ligament, is only a part of the mechanism by which the valves are opened and shut. The resilient ligament by itself would keep the valves gaping. They are closed by the contraction of adductor muscles. When these muscles relax, the external ligament, which has been under tension, pulls the valves apart. In forms with an internal ligament, the ligament is under compression and thus pushes the valves open when the muscles relax. Microscopic bivalves are recorded from the Lower Cambrian. Macroscopic forms appeared in the Lower Ordovician, and numbers gradually increase until the end of Paleozoic, occurring in abundance in some upper Paleozoic horizons. Many genera disappeared at the close of the Permian, and further extinctions occurred in the late Triassic. A great diversity of new genera appeared during the Mesozoic, and the class reached its acme in the Tertiary. It remains an important group today. The distinguishing feature of the gastropods is the twisting of the viscera. The body is asymmetric. This is a head at the anterior end, and on the ventral surface is a muscular creeping foot. In most forms, the body is protected by a single shell. Typically, the shell is a tapering tube, coiled in a right-handed spiral. A characteristic feature of most mollusks is a radula, a rasping, tongue-like structure used in feeding. It consists of dozens to hundreds of microscopic, chitinous teeth arranged in rows on an underlying membrane and lies in a chamber at the anterior end of the gut. The membrane wraps around the muscular support structures so the radula can be protruded through the mouth and move something like a sanding belt over what is being rasped. Benthic mollusks use their radulae to scrape up algae and other food materials. In some predatory gastropods, The radula is modified to draw through clam shells so the snail can eat the clams. In snails of the genus Conus, the radula has been transformed into a harpoon that is associated with a venom gland. Cone snails use this harpoon to capture prey such as fish. The shell consists mainly of crystals of calcium carbonate, usually aragonite intermeshed with organic matter. The shell is basically a conical tube, closed at the pointed end, the apex, and open at the wide end, the aperture. Gastropods are first recorded in basal Cambrian rocks. Many families appeared during the Paleozoic and Mesozoic. Few of these became extinct, and by the Tertiary, gastropods were numerous and highly diversified. Today, gastropods far outnumber any other class of mollusks. The cephalopods are nectonic mollusks distinguished by the 8, 10, or many prehensile arms or tentacles, which surround the head. The foot is strongly associated with the head and is modified to form the funnel, a swimming organ powered by water ejected from the mantle cavity. One living and most fossil cephalopods possess an external chambered univalve shell designed as a buoyant device. Basically, it is a cone which may be straight, curved, or coiled in a planispiral. It is divided by septa. Cephalopods have the largest relative brain sizes among invertebrates and highly developed nervous systems. Many exhibit complex patterns of behavior and are highly intelligent. Octopuses have been known to climb out their aquaria, move across a laboratory floor, enter another aquarium to capture and devour a crab, and then return to their own tank, leaving lab personnel to wonder why their crabs were disappearing. Cephalopod eyes are much like those of vertebrates, although they evolved independently. Cephalopods have an extensive fossil record from the late Cambrian onwards. Ammonoids are typically distinguished by a coiled, usually planispiral shell with folded and often complex suture lines, forwards projecting spiral necks in the adult shell, a slender siphuncle lying close to the ventral margin, and an ovate embryonic shell. The shell consists of 3 parts: the protoconch, the phragmocone, and the body chamber. It is a record of successive growth stages. Ammonoids, extinct since the end of the Cretaceous, have left few fossil clues as to the nature of the soft parts. Thus, Nautilus, the sole surviving cephalopod with an external chambered shell, is an important point of reference. A few small ammonoids, appearing towards the lower end of the Devonian, begin with a series of striking radiations interrupted by episodes of multiple extinctions. The first of the latter occurred in the late Devonian, others in the late Permian and late Triassic, while the final extinction of the group took place at the end of the Cretaceous. The major radiations were of goniatids and climenids. New families of goniatids, ceratitids, and ammonitids, respectively. Nemertians are awfully long worms that have a coelomic cavity and blood vessel derived from the coelom. They capture prey with a muscular proboscis. Unlike the acoelomate flatworms, Nemertians have a complete gut with mouth and anus. Annelids generally exhibit segmentation. Each segment has its own excretory and locomotor elements. Circular and longitudinal muscles in segments cause the body to extend and contract, respectively. Worms of class Polychaeta which are mostly marine, have parapodia on their segments. Leeches and earthworms were formerly in separate classes, but a major morphological similarity, the clitellum, has been used to group them into a single class, Clitellata. Mollusks have a reduced xylem. Most have efficient excretory systems, gills for respiration, and a rasping structure, the radula, for gathering food. The mantle of mollusks not only secretes their protective shell, but also forms structures essential to body functions. Gastropods, bivalves, and cephalopods are the three best-known groups. That is all for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.